Here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore. We never shut out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. Today, we got week 6. We're almost halfway through the season at this point. Here it comes. We got some really good games this week, actually. Like legitimate college football playoff implications. Some really nice conference games that I'm looking at. So what's the agenda today? All right, as usual, okay, we're gonna be previewing we have 8 games we've selected this week that we want to preview. We're gonna give you our 30 dogs, our 10-point underdogs that we believe can win straight up, and we're about 20% this season. So if your team is on that list, watch out, is all I'm saying. Watch out. And then we'll give you our best bets, which, in the last 2 weeks, I believe is a combined see 4-1, 5-1, so 9-1, 14-1. Holy cow. It's like, are we legitimately 17-3 in the last 2 weeks? 17-4 in the
I
last
think
two
four.
weeks.
I think I'm like 4-1 or something like that the last couple weeks.
Well, you're 7-3 the last 2 weeks, and I'm 10-1. So that would make sense. Let's go. But yeah, if you're watching this, I would encourage you to like the video. Kind of a bit of a rule we have here. If you like the content, like the video. All right. And I would encourage you to subscribe. We're almost at 500 subscribers. Like, it's been a huge goal of ours for a while. It would be really cool. It would be really cool. And you guys can help us do that. So we appreciate that so much. But with that being said, CD, anything of note before we get into the slate of games?
No, just excited, but cannot believe it's already week 6 by the time this comes out. It'll probably be October. Holy cow, we're really into conference stuff, like Matthew said. Hope you guys are enjoying our content, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And yeah,
With that being said, let's head over to the first game. Let's talk about UNLV is hosting Syracuse. UNLV, their winning against Kansas isn't looking as strong as it was before. And the Mountain West has some good teams in the top half of that conference, but there's not a lot of teams that you're going to play against that if they're trying to build a resume to be a legitimate college football playoff team, this is one of those games that you got to win, you know? Even though it's a Power 5 team, Power 4 team, excuse me, you have to win this game. And metrically, UNLV, they're first of all, they're favored by 5 points. So that tells you that I think it opened at 4. So they're probably power rated as a better team than Syracuse. And I would agree with that, especially with Haj Malik Williams at quarterback that we saw last weekend. UNLV is a top 10 team in points per game scoring on offense. They're top 15 in points per game allowed defensively. And they've played some pretty decent offensive teams, I would say. They've looked nothing short of spectacular. And Syracuse, team that I thought was going to run the ball really effectively this year, has failed to do that. They're only averaging 3.5 yards per carry, 102 yards per game. And on the flip side of that, Kyle McCord has looked awesome, but an interception um late in that Stanford game ended up kind of costing him that game. So Syracuse, after impressive win against Georgia Tech and impressive start to the season, drops one early to Stanford. I'm wondering if that's just, the lumps that you're going to take with your first year having a new head coach.
yeah, I like you said, I've been surprised that they have not run the ball as well as they could have with LaQuint Allen, even Will Nixon. Good complementary piece there as well. That's something I do think that has to change. However, UNLV is very good against the run. They do a great job of getting after opposing teams in that front seven. We saw Fresno State struggle. We saw a lot of other teams struggle. And if you can't run the ball, you're one-dimensional. It makes it a lot harder to move the football, even though you got a guy like Common Core actually playing pretty well. But like you said, there has been a couple turnovers in these games that have been a little bit concerning, and that happens. So when you're throwing the ball 40 sometimes a game, right? Like Kyle McCord has done, which I don't think any of us saw. I guess it is what it is. Like you said, this is a must-win game, I think, for UNLV, and you're a home favorite, first of all, against Power Five school. And to backtrack a little bit, I love this idea of having Power Five, Power Four teams going on the road to G5. I think that's really fun. I think it makes the atmosphere fantastic. I think it tests these G5, these Power Four teams as well about their road discipline. Here's the thing though about going on the road. It's not just going on the road. It is crossing multiple time zones. This is the first time Syracuse is leaving, right? The carrier dome. They have been there all 4 weeks so far, and now they go on the road across the country, really testing themselves on a kind of a, on Friday night, right? I think they had a, let's see, they kind of had a bye a couple weeks ago. Yeah, they're still figuring it out. So obviously a lot to break down here, a lot to be excited about for both these teams in the early part here. I like UNLV in this game. I really do. I think that the way that you saw Heisman Williams completely kind of transform that offense and give it a little extra dimension that Sluka didn't really have more so consistently. We saw him make a ton of big time throws when he needed to. But in terms of the down and down efficiency, I do think Heisman Williams ironically kind of gives them a better chance to do so. And we saw that in that Fresno game where he was super efficient. We saw them run the ball well. We saw them obviously stop the run. Yeah, give me UNLV, carry this momentum, continue to build, like you said, a college football playoff resume.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Syracuse could absolutely win this game, but I think traveling across the country, and they're playing against a team, and I know Fran Brown knows this, but they're playing against a team that's a lot better than your standard G5 team right now. Barry Odom
And
has these
coach's staff too.
the
Yeah.
coaching staff. Yeah, UNLV, they're buzzing right now, and I don't think that they stop. We're picking this game at 4.5. Yeah, I'll have them win, and I'll lay the 4.5 with them as well. I For all the reasons that you mentioned, Haj Malik Williams, dude, is I know it's just one start, and we'll see it because Syracuse's defense, while it has been great, I feel like also they've played some better offenses than maybe you're
Oh, yeah.
through 5 games in the season, right? The sample size is not incredibly big yet for a lot of these teams. Syracuse can still show some stuff defensively, and Elijah Robinson, the defensive coordinator, he's still a little bit unproven. So I don't really know what I'm going to get from Syracuse's defense in this game, but I do know that UNLV is kind of a wagon right now. So yeah, I'll take UNLV and I'll lay the 4.5. I'll ride with you right there. I think that's the right side to be on. And the lines moved. I think it opened at 4.5 or four and moved 4.5. There's some fives out there. Not a best bet for me though, because I still have a lot of question marks about Syracuse that I just don't feel very certain about. And we've only seen one start from Haj Malik Williams as well. And what's it going to look like when he runs into a defense, that isn't in the bottom 40 in just about every major category, right? So I think that is something to monitor, but I'll be watching this game. This is an 11 a.m. game, right?
It was 8 p.m. on Friday.
Oh, sorry, 8 p.m. Friday. Sorry, it's just the first game on our
That's a slow,
time
short week
slate.
for Syracuse across the country. It is interesting because you mentioned Haj McLean's, second start. We talk about this sometimes with backup quarterbacks. Not that he's like a backup quarterback, right? But he kind of was where that first start, a lot of times they do very well because there's no film on them. Like sometimes these defenses don't know what to expect from like a brand new quarterback and how that quarterback is going to fit the system. It's a similar style that Sluka played. But obviously, now the book is out on him. Now Syracuse has some film, and like you said, there's a lot of good defensive minds on that staff to be able to pick apart and figure out how they can stop in this UNLV ground game.
That's a very good point that you make. It's a very good point. Now there's film on him. I think there's still film on him at Campbell. I believe he's Campbell's all-time passing leader. But yeah, just definite food for thought there. Definite food for thought. Let's head over now to one of the games of the week, actually. If you break down this slate, you got two teams that are undefeated in the SEC, Texas A&M and Missouri. A&M hosts Missouri. That line opened at 3. It's now been bet down to 1.5, which is what we're going to pick it on for this show. Texas A&M has yet to throw for over 200 yards in a single game this season. It's not really looking good. The Colin Klein offense hasn't been as impressive as maybe people thought it was going to be. But also, too, when you look at the weapons at the wide receiver position, at least the ones that are playing, there's not a lot of explosive tendencies with them. So you had some big plays when you needed them. You had a big Cyrus Allen touchdown against Florida. You had a big Noah Thomas touchdown this past weekend against Arkansas, which you needed. But Marcel Reed did not look very good against Arkansas. Did not. And Missouri's defense has looked actually pretty decent thus far. Metrically, they're awesome. They haven't played uh, some of the best teams, Murray State, Buffalo, and Boston College is a pretty good team. I would say Boston College is a good team that they played against. Vanderbilt, they went to OT with. Like Missouri hasn't looked all that great either. But when I'm looking at this game, even though you're traveling to Kyle Field, I just see more explosive players on Missouri. I see more playmakers, right? I think A&M's defense is actually better than Missouri's, despite looking at I know you want to look at the metrics for Missouri and believe that Missouri's better. I think A&M's defense is actually better than Missouri's. But there's a lot of moving pieces in the secondary right now. Bryce Anderson has not been playing a lot. He's banged up. Okay. You got Des Ricks getting most of the snaps at cornerback this past week, and he looked good at times, but he really got burned a couple times. And that's just, being a young player, and you saw the athleticism on his interception last week as well. I think BJ Mays is getting some playing time at nickel because Jaden Hill just is not cutting it right now. He's just not good. I just think Missouri's their playmakers on offense. I think they might overwhelm A&M a little bit. I think this could be a close game, but I'll take Missouri in a bit of a nail biter here um, on the road. I'll take them to win. I'll take them plus 1.5.
Yeah, this is a super, super intriguing game. I think we've seen a little bit of, well, I don't know if we've been impressed with either of these teams, right? Obviously, this is a huge game. It will be top 10 matchup for Missouri. A&M is right there on the bubble of being ranked. Yeah, I I don't know how I feel about this one because we saw in Missouri's limited sample size against some Power Four opponents against Boston College and Vanderbilt, their offense played okay. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't humming,
Mm-hmm.
but they ran the ball pretty efficiently, in both those games, which were able to pull out a dub there. I don't know. I don't think Marcel Reed has to have a monster game for A&M to win. I think they need to establish the run a little bit more than they did against Arkansas. I think they need to hit explosive plays just like they did against Arkansas with Thomas there and be able to break it up. Because if you do maybe a struggling offense, putting together drives, and methodically moving the football down the field is hard to do. It really is. If you can hit explosive plays, quick hitters here, you can flip momentum, you can get that crowd behind you, more than anybody. That Kyle Field crowd, even at 11 a.m., will be humming for a top 10 team coming into College Station. I I think Missouri is better than A&M. I think, but I do think their defensive pieces that they lost to the NFL is hurting them more than I think some people were kind of willing to admit beginning in the preseason. And this will be, your first road test of the year. Obviously, Vanderbilt and Boston College are having successful seasons so far, but this is a different level of talent that you are playing. How can A&M block the front of Missouri? And can they hit explosive plays over the top or catch and runs, whatever it may be, Colin Klein scheming it up. I'm with you here. I'm gonna take Missouri. I do not feel good about it. This is what I'm absolutely
Mm-hmm.
excited to watch because I think we'll learn a lot about both these teams. Yeah, holy cow.
I'm
October,
really
man. October, we getting this. We love it.
I'm really
And
excited.
by the way, these teams don't play each other too often, do they?
No, these are the two teams that were added, in the 2012 season. They came in together from the Big 12, and they were in the separate divisions. So they played the last time they played was 2021 when Connor Bazelak was the quarterback for Missouri, and A&M kind of gave Missouri the business a little bit on the road in Columbia. So now you got Mizzou at home here. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a good game. If A&M wins this game, all of a sudden the rest of their schedule, you still got tough games against LSU and South Carolina, but they feel winnable then at that point if you're A&M. So this is a big game. And of course that Texas game, because of the magnitude of the game and because it's at home, I'm not counting out A&M in that Texas game. I just won't. So It'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see how A&M and Missouri, like the winner of this game is going to be talked about as, potentially a conference title contender, but I don't feel that way about either team. But
We'll see the eye test looks. I think we'll see
yeah,
the eye test if Missouri comes out and really dominates. We've talked about that on this show. A&M's home away split is definitely something that is quote unquote favorable if you win your home game, right? There's a lot of winnable home or a lot of your big time home games are winnable, or I guess big wins they would be. On the reverse side, Missouri's got a couple big time road games, right? A&M, Alabama, and all of a sudden South Carolina, right? At the end of October or in the middle of November there. So yeah, this is one I think for Missouri, not that they have to have, but one you really want to have because then you get an opportunity to lose to Alabama. You don't have to beat Alabama. You don't have to go on the road there. Maybe you slip up later in the season and you can still find your way back door into the playoffs. This would be a signature win for them to hang their hat on come November when the playoff, committee kind of starts looking at these resumes.
is SMU back? They looked dead for the first couple weeks of the season. They looked dead. But Kevin Jennings is playing some damn good football right now. He is playing some damn good football. And this SMU defense, albeit has benefited from some defensive touchdowns, has been very good stopping the run this season. And Louisville is going to want to try to do that to some degree. Louisville's averaging 5.7 yards per carry on the season. Both teams are averaging over 40 points a game. Both teams are only letting up less than 22 points per game when you look at it. So it's not like these teams have played any slouches of teams. Like SMU really took it to TCU the other week. Louisville kind of took Notre Dame, I guess, to the wire. And honestly, I didn't feel worse about Louisville after that game. So this is very intriguing. An ACC matchup, which who would have told you that, going in or last year, it's pretty crazy stuff. Louisville, for SMU's catching 6.5 points here. It's in Louisville. I'm struggling to kind of pick this game because the recency bias for me with SMU is pretty strong.
Yep.
But what do they have? 5 defensive touchdowns this year? That's a lot. 9 interceptions. That's second in the country. Is Tyler Shuck really going to turn the ball over like that? SMU's also recovered 5 fumbles, which is seventh in the country. So part of me believes that this SMU defense, it's one of those ones, and we sniff them out every year. It's like, which of these defenses that haven't given up a ton of points are actually good defenses, or have they benefited from turnover luck? And SMU right now it's a red flag for me. So I think I'm going to take Louisville, and I think I'm going to take the points here. Um, Pending Tyler Shuck's ability to take care of the football.
I think he can. I would trust him, especially at home here. The only thing that does concern me, I'll switch to when SMU has the ball and Louisville is on defense. We saw Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, not super dynamic, which they haven't been all year. But honestly, I trust Kevin Jennings and Brashard Smith and that Rhett Lashley, those guys to move the football in this game. And what Kevin Jennings can do, and not only throwing the football, but him and Brashard Smith in the backfield running the football, having success on their own, kind of opening up lanes for others to be able to push the ball down the field to Jake Bailey's, your RJ Maryland, all Romeo Brinson. They kind of got a stable of wide receivers they like there. That to me could be the concerning spot where not only, maybe SMU's defense is opportunistic, but also they're running the ball well, keeping the ball away from Shuck and Louisville and Jeff Fromm, and really pushing Louisville to make sure that they're scoring consistently when not giving SMU short fields. With that being said, it's it's so hard to pick. This is why I'm not putting money on it because I'm not putting it on our counter with our best bets because the variance with turnovers and how that can change a football game and outcome or even the spread, right? With a backdoor cover, those things it's so hard to predict. So hard to predict. Down and down, though, I do think Louisville is a better football team. Like you said, even though they lost Notre Dame, they didn't look fantastic. I think this SMU defense, while yes, statistically it looks fantastic, at times Hoover really moved the football right now. He did have some turnovers, but he really moved the football. I think Shuck and those receivers, Colin Lacey was a nice addition back. Ja'Cory Brooks is obviously very, very good. I think they move the football. I think they get it done. I think they kind of get out to a lead here and don't let SMU be able to run and grind the game out and kind of make sure, kind of speed up right their tempo and what they want to do offensively.
So you're picking Louisville?
Sorry, yeah, I'm on Louisville. What are we picking at? 6.5, 7?
6.5. 6.5. I mean, it's folks, it's mostly at sevens out there. You can get some 6.5s with juice. Just for the show, like I hate pushes, when we're just picking games because we keep track of our
No, yeah.
record as the season goes, and CD and I have kind of been killing it. I mean, so far this year, I'm 26 and 15 ATS. CD's 25 and 16 ATS, which, if you don't know, that's absolutely ridiculous. Being over 60%, both of us is crazy. So, yeah, we'll pick this game at 6.5, but and I'm assuming that's a really favorable number for Louisville. I think I'm with you. I can't take it in terms of putting actual hard-earned dollars on it. Can't do it. So moving on. Okay. You got a really interesting game here. Ole Miss is coming off of a stinker against Kentucky, and you're playing a defense that is arguably better, okay, in South Carolina, and you got to go to South Carolina. Kentucky just came into your building and won outright, 20-17, and they didn't need exceptional quarterback play. They just needed a really nice defensive effort, which we believed Kentucky had in them all along. We saw it against Georgia. Kentucky's like that kind of. Like Kentucky's a pretty decent football team. South Carolina, though, don't love to do the transitive property thing here on the show, but I think South Carolina's defense just overwhelmed Kentucky's offense to a degree where I don't think a lot of defenses in the country can do that, and that's why they looked so bad, and that's why they kind of destroyed Kentucky. I'm not going to say because South Carolina destroyed Kentucky that South Carolina should destroy Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss is what 9-point favorites right now. Is that what we're picking this game at?
Oh, was it up to 9?
We'll pick it at 9.5. There's some 9.5s out there. We'll pick it at 9.5. It's a lot of points, but Ole Miss is really good, guys. Like Ole Miss is still really good. And the thing about South Carolina is, I don't know that their run defense is spectacular, if that makes sense, but that their pass rush is elite. And if Lane Kiffin is in his bag, well, they can get the ball out quickly. Okay, that's how you kind of beat the South Carolina team. You don't turn the ball over like you know, LSU did, even though South Carolina probably should have won that game because of that one call. And you got to probably run the ball against South Carolina. You got to try to do it. Got to try to do it. But I don't know, dude. South Carolina doesn't need exceptional quarterback play to win this game, let alone cover. I mean, but the issue is here though, like
It it needs to be competent quarterback play though. It can't be like
yeah,
Brock Vandagriff actually played pretty well, and then that was not something we'd seen. And maybe that's Ole Miss's defense being a little bit more leaky than we had thought. Classic Pete Golding, right? But I don't know if
classic.
I,
Or was that just a
it's
Pete
not like
Golden stinker? Like he has those games every once in a while where he does stink as a
Sellers
quarterback.
has to play better than he did against Kentucky, right? And he probably has to play,
He got hurt
yeah,
against
and
LSU.
probably LSU too. But he played fine. But
Yeah, he played well up until that point. But you know what South Carolina did offensively is they had a couple explosive run plays. And I don't know if you're going to have those explosive run plays against this Ole Miss defense. I really don't. I know Kentucky had a couple explosive, honestly, they had a couple explosive pass plays that ended up, putting them in positions to score. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the right side here is to be on South Carolina plus 9.5. I feel like that's the right side. But I'm not gonna do that. I think I'm gonna lay it with Ole Miss. I kind of like them in this spot, 9.5. I think the defensive line for South Carolina is elite. But I think Lane Kiffin knows that, and I think he dials it up, man. I think he's gonna dial it up. I really do.
Yeah, I'm going Ole Miss here, and I'll take the points too. What they need to do, which they did not do against Kentucky, is like when they get going tempo wise, that's how you really slow down a good pass rush too. You get those guys huffing and puffing into that red zone, and it's real easy to be sit back there with Jackson Dart and score and pick them apart with those weapons. Like you said, try to run the football. I don't know, and that could be a problem because if you are trying to go tempo, right, you're trying to go tempo, you have to get first downs. And getting first downs only throwing the football, that's tough to do. On the road too, that's tough to do. And for all that is made about Lane Kiffin and about him offensively and the flash and all that, the scheming up, throwing the clipboard up, blah blah blah. He loves to run the football. And Ole Miss is at its best when they are running the ball well. Obviously, I feel like it hasn't been talked about too much. Like Quinshawn Judkins is not there. And are they missing that? Obviously, Henry Parrish, very talented player, very talented football player. But Quinshawn Judkins, different type of running back in the SEC there. He would be a guy that you would love to have. You would love to have on this game on the road when you're not clicking offensively. Maybe you can't get consistent play and you got to go and boom, here's Judkins, 8 yards here, tough 4 yards here. That's the difference. The kind of the energy and the intensity he gives you offensively is sometimes big. And maybe we're missing that. Maybe we're not. Maybe it's an overreaction. I think it's more of an overreaction, right? I think Kentucky's a good football team. I think they went on the road and they kind of stunned Ole Miss. Looking at
So
Ole
there's
Miss's schedule, I would not have picked that game to be the trap game. Like this was the trap game I was kind of thinking about. It was at the end,
yes,
of a long
absolutely.
kind of stretch here, a week before LSU on the road, right? A lot of things could go wrong, especially with that front that South Carolina is going to give a lot of teams trouble. I think Ole Miss is a good team. I'm not ready to just sell my entire Ole Miss playoff stock, my entire Ole Miss SEC stock. I think they bounce back in this game. Yes, Syracuse very good, very frisky, very dangerous. And it would not surprise me, obviously, if they come in or at their home turf and they get a win here. But I
Yeah,
think Ole Miss is
seriously.
going to come out ready to go.
Yeah, which is why this is not a bet at all. Like, and when we if we come back and we're recording on Sunday and South Carolina wins straight up, I'm gonna be like, well, duh, of course, you know. And then my expectations for Ole Miss are probably recalibrated because there are some elite defenses in the SEC that if they're struggling offensively to move the football against South Carolina and Kentucky, like what are they going to do against some of these other better defenses? Uh,
You look at Oklahoma, you look at Georgia. Now both their
yeah,
games are at home, but
yeah,
good
those are
defenses there.
yeah, like Oklahoma's a game. Like if they drop this game to South Carolina, like I would be inclined to look favorably on Oklahoma, even though Oklahoma hasn't looked good, right? I defensively, like you said, they're very talented. So yeah, I'll reluctantly take Ole Miss minus 9.5. I know we got a lot of South Carolina fans as subscribers. Look, hey, over 5.5, we're still holding on. All right, we're still holding on.
And
It's
by
me
the
and
way,
you guys. Let's
to be fair,
go.
I have not been on. I've been wrong by South Carolina. Like this, I've been bad picking them, this year so far. In terms of how South Carolina does win the football game, you mentioned they don't have to have elite quarterback play, right? It's got to be Sanders and Sellers, or do they still have to hit explosive plays? Is it going to be their defense creating short fields? Like what's the game plan here, for Beamer and his squad?
Moving on. Iowa at Ohio State. Kind of the forgotten game this week, where I'm not going to say it's a litmus test for Iowa. It's more of a litmus test for Will Howard, you know?
Yeah.
And look, the spread is gigantic. Okay. We don't normally cover games like with this kind of spread. But this week I felt important to talk about this game and preview it a little bit because Iowa offensively has looked explosive in the run game, and I don't anticipate them having as explosive as a run game as they've had. But Caleb Johnson is really good, but we might find out how good. If he all of a sudden runs for another 150 yards against the Ohio State defense, like I have to look at Caleb Johnson in a similar light to the way I look at Ash and Janty. Similar, maybe not the same tier, but because holy cow, are both offenses dependent on their running backs. Will Howard has looked really good. It looks like Ohio State so far has won kind of the trade between Kansas State and them. And I guess I shouldn't say trade, but he's looked really good. And I've always been a Will Howard believer. I really have. And I think Ohio State, like if you were to tell me to pick Ohio State, I know they're the favorite to win at like plus 350 in most places. Yeah, I like Ohio State right now to win the national championship. But we haven't really seen Ohio State play a real challenging team yet. So I'm excited for this one, man. I'm excited. Like Will Howard looks good against this Iowa defense. Granted, I don't think this Iowa defense, we've talked about this, I don't think it's as good as some of the past couple years defenses that they've had at Iowa. But boy, would if Will Howard looks really good, I'm inclined to take maybe Ohio State a little, maybe sprinky on a future.
Yeah, we saw Iowa in two of their tougher games this year. Obviously, Minnesota in that first half and Iowa State in that second half moved the football through the air, right? And that was something that I think we were both surprised with. First of all, how talented and athletic their linebacking duo is, and also how experienced their defensive backs are. Their safety group is very, very talented, very, very experienced. There was Schulte and Lamka. And like with all due respect to Minnesota, right, and Daniel Jackson, very good football player. All due respect to Iowa State, Rocco Becht, and the two stud receivers there. You got to believe Ohio State not only can block better and hold up for Will Howard, but also with how well Jeremiah Smith, Ibuka, how talented Tate and Ennis are. Like you think they're going to be able to move the football, and that's what scares me in this game. We've seen so many times or I guess enough times, Iowa like really, really play well against, your middle of the pack of the Big Ten. But then once you get that big time talent gap between, your Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, even sometimes some years, like you see the damn break. And it doesn't matter how good that Phil Parker defense is, it kind of just falls apart because the level of athlete that Ohio State is able to trot out there just kind of overwhelms Iowa, and their offense cannot keep up, especially if they are down early. We've seen Ohio State get off to good starts here the last couple of weeks. Yeah, I like Ohio State in this game. I will lay 20. Is it 20 and a half right now we're picking at?
20 and a half for picking at.
Yeah, I still am not sold on Iowa. I thought it was impressive how they came in and handled business against Minnesota. But again, I think that Minnesota run defense is a lot more leaky than that front seven Ohio State, which we haven't really talked about either. This defense of Ohio State, for all the attention Will Howard, Jeremiah Smith, the two running backs are getting, this defense is really, really good. Aiden Child's a good dynamic football player. They could not run the ball, first of all. And also, he struggled to get going consistently. That defense is very good. They return a ton of production on all three levels there. That defense coordinator is obviously one of the best in the country, and Jim Knowles. Yeah, Ohio State has been as good as advertised, I think, since maybe that first half of the Akron game, where they kind of get off to a slow start. I think they continue that trend here, moving into Big Ten play against Iowa.
Eye test wise, Ohio State to me feels like the best team in the country right now. I think if they score 28 points, I think they can cover the 20 and a half. I'll lay with you the 20 and a half. But man, dude, if Caleb Johnson looks awesome in this game, like, dude, he might be like that guy, like actually
Well,
that guy.
and you not that and Iowa has a very favorable schedule after this game, but I think you completely recalibrate in terms of like the upside in winning those games because of if they can move the ball offensively or if they can be that good running the ball when everyone knows it's coming. That is massive. And we talked about with Iowa is if you give them a top 70 offense, right? Even if it is all on the ground, with that defense and that coaching staff, they're going to be very productive in the Big Ten.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. Is Iowa's defense the best defense Ohio State's going to see all year? I'm inclined to say no. Is it the second best defense that Ohio State's going to see all year?
I don't know because you got a stretch here coming up where you have Oregon next week, which is a huge game, and that's the
Look
other thing
ahead.
too. Is it yeah? Is it look ahead? I think Ryan
I
Day and them they know better than look ahead against Iowa.
Yes.
This is a senior ridden team. I don't think they're gonna be doing that. They don't have to, by the way. They can play their B minus game and still get a win here. But Oregon's got a solid defense. I think Nebraska has a solid defense. I think Penn State and Michigan as well. All of a sudden, Ohio State's schedule is looking a little bit more challenging than I think we had originally kind of previewed, where we're like, okay, there's 3 games in this. Now, obviously, we say challenging. One of their challenging games, they're 20.5 point favorites, right? That is the parity of the Big Ten we've talked about, but it's interesting. If they struggle in this game stopping the run, I think you're going to see that's a little bit more concerning. That's to me, it's the takeaway is okay. Maybe Iowa's very good around the football. They're going to be able to do that against anybody. But also for Ohio State, that to me would be concerning with that front seven.
It's Rutgers team. They're winning ball games. It ain't pretty though. It really is not. This line's at 7. We'll pick it at 7.5. All right, just because we don't like pushes on the show. It's pretty juiced to Rutgers plus 7.5, but I can see that line moving back and forth a little bit. Rutgers, Ethan Kelly-McManus is not a world beater. They've run the ball
We found that
effectively.
out last week too.
Yeah, we found that out last week. Well, we've known
Oh,
that.
we've known.
We've
But
known
everyone
that.
else, he's changed. Kirk Soraka, new Athan.
Reunited? No. He is who he is. And Nebraska has looked pretty good. And Rutgers, you know what's funny about their defense, and I'm a little bit shocked by this. Would you be surprised to know, Christopher, that Rutgers is giving up 5.9 yards per carry on
That would
defense?
not have been on my bingo card coming into this year. That is pretty surprising.
Yeah, they're I, that makes me concerned, right? Because if you are not able to, first of all, if Rutgers isn't able to run the ball, Nebraska has a really good defensive line. Okay, it's it's very good. We've talked about it plenty of times. They've gotten gashed before, and their run defense stats are a little bit inflated by playing Colorado, but they still haven't allowed a rushing touchdown all year. They're letting up 2.8 yards per carry, only 85 yards per game on the ground. Uh, I think it's gonna be tough sledding for Rutgers. I honestly think that, but is it enough where you feel good about Nebraska covering that 7 at home? I want to say yes. I I don't I don't know. I'll let you pick. I know what you're picking, but
I'll take Nebraska. I would like it at 7, a lot more than 7.5. But for the show, I'll take it at 7.5. Obviously, not going to be betting this one. It. I just. I think Nebraska. I think they had a lot of hype, and then they lost to Illinois, who, by the way, I think is a very good football team. They ran into a quarterback, Luke Altmaier, that was playing very, very well, and I don't see that in Nathan Kelly-McManus. I don't see that in this Rutgers offense. To me, they are big play oriented, not only in the running game but also in the passing game. The consistency that Ethan struggles, his footwork is still awful. It was so bad last Friday against Washington, and I at 115 yards, they got outgained by over 200 yards, and they only gave up 18 points. I don't know exactly how that happened. It was probably more so about the third down inefficiency of Washington that I think with Raiola and the running game of Nebraska at home, they're going to be able to do a better job than Washington did and be able to capitalize on their drives. And listen, I love Rutgers. I think Rutgers can absolutely win this whole game. I think they're good enough to run the ball. I think they're good enough in their defense is solid enough. And listen, if Kirk Soraka and Ethan are on the same page and Ethan playing well, he's a good Big Ten quarterback. When he doesn't, though, that's where we see problems. And how often do we see him against good defenses play well? I have not. As a Minnesota fan, I have seen him plenty of times to know that I don't know if I can trust him right now in this game to go on the road and get a win here. I think Nebraska and Raiola, they're playing very well. I think their defensive line, we talked about it, struggled against Illinois, but bounced back against Purdue. And Purdue, by the way, just fired their OC. They're not very a world beater offensively, though, but I don't think it's a crazy drop off from Purdue or a crazy uptick from Purdue to Rutgers offensively. Rutgers has a very specific plan on how they're going to be able to win this football game. And I think with the way Nebraska is built, they will be able to disrupt that. I'm talking about running the football well and playing defense, shortening the football game, bend but don't break kind of defense that Rutgers can play to be able to keep teams from scoring right in the red zone, scoring right now, or extending drives on third down. I do think Nebraska, how well they can run the ball, how good Raiola has been, man, even on third down. I think they have the weapons to take advantage of the Rutgers defense. Give me Nebraska minus 7.5.
think a big struggle with uh and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but a big struggle for Washington this year has been, that red zone offense kind of it's costed them in a couple games this season. And look, Nebraska's not very good in the red zone. And Rutgers is fantastic
Yeah,
defensively in the red
that's true.
zone. And when you're talking about margins like 7.5 points, I think that matters. I think that matters. Covering 7.5. I'll take Nebraska to win, but I'll take Rutgers to cover. For that reason, I don't think Nebraska. I think they'll struggle putting the ball in the end zone once they get down there. Now, could Nebraska have a couple explosive plays? Absolutely. Not sure if it's going to be in the pass game though, because Rutgers has kind of been pretty decent in that aspect, in terms of giving up explosive plays. But yeah, I'll take Rutgers to cover. I don't feel good about it at all, but I just think the margins there. If you're gonna give me the hook, I'll take it.
That's not crazy. The three missed field goals though last in the first half for Nebraska speaks to their inefficiencies in the red zone too, but I don't quite foreseeing that happen again. I mean, if it does,
That's
holy
fair.
cow, we got some real problems. But I think that's where I think people are like, well, Nebraska struggled with Purdue in the first half. I mean, they did, but also they should have been up more than they were, or they
Oh,
should have been,
yeah,
and it would have
absolutely.
been 0-0.
And to be fair, Washington should have beat Rutgers. Like for
Yeah,
similar reasons. He wouldn't have a missed field goal that won him the game too. So it might have been multiple missed field goals. I was to go back and look at that game, but yeah, I guess we're both on Nebraska to win, but give me the points. Give me the points. Let's head over to Gainesville. A absolutely pivotal game for Billy Napier's Florida Gators. You are playing against UCF, a team that you just saw got their absolute teeth kicked in by Colorado. A UCF team that's on the rise in recruiting, a team that is less talented than you at Florida, and you get them at home
off a bye.
off of a bye. You have to win this game if you are Florida. You have to. There's no excuse. And what does this mean? Does this mean I think if you're Florida and to give yourself the best chance to win this game, I think you need Graham Mertz. I do. I do believe that. I think you need him to play well. I don't Billy Napier's job, I think, is on the line with this very game. And I'm sure the boosters and the aid or in the department and maybe some of his other coaching staff is like maybe putting the pressure on him to play DJ Lagway. I don't think he's ready yet. I think you got to go with Graham Mertz. I think you got to ride with him this whole game. And I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. But are you in the same boat as me there? Like they need Graham Mertz to win this game.
They do. And I don't hate the idea of getting Lagway some kind of packages, some kind of spots, changing the look for the defense, right? Making sure that UCF has to prepare for two different quarterbacks. But yeah, down to down, it has to be Mertz. He has to play better than he has played, but also play well for them to win this football game. You talk about Florida in terms of Billy Napier's job security. We looked at that November as being this crazy gauntlet that you gotta where if you want to make a bowl game if you're Florida, right, which we thought would be an incredible feat for them, you have to be at 6 wins before the clock turns to November. That doesn't really look the case anymore. You talk about a Georgia team that looked very vulnerable in a couple games now, LSU and Ole Miss as well, and um, Florida State obviously at the end in November is definitely a very, very winnable football game right now. The thing is, you got to get there. And that starts with today. Like you said, this week against UCF. UCF, at least they have an identity. That's what I'll say about them. They know what they are, right? They can run the football and run the ball well. It's when they get back in the negative game script. We saw KJ Jefferson, a couple interceptions, right? Not being able to drive the football down, but also defensively, a lot of concerning issues there. A lot of concerning issues there. Not only did they let Colorado actually run the ball, 4.4 yards per carry, which they have not done all year. All Deion Sanders is tenure there at Colorado. but also the weapons that Colorado had were able to take advantage of UCF's secondary. And look at Florida and how they played and how well they played against a pretty bad Mississippi State football team. They got after it. They had two incompletions all day. They averaged 6.3 yards per carry. That's where you want to be. You want to get up in the game and kind of pull away late. And that's what they were able to do. And it's at home, like we said. You cannot let this be a close game because you talk about a crowd maybe turning against you. You talk about giving UCF, who, by the way, has a huge chip on their shoulder in this football game, a chance to believe that they should win this football game. And by the way, they do. The line, what is one? It's Florida -1. And that means neutral site
Yep.
UCF is power rated higher than Florida. Florida's favored because they have that little bit of home field advantage. Wow. Man, I know not everyone was super high in Florida, but and we were high in UCF, but I don't know how many people saw this line being as close as it is right now. Um, yeah, hopefully Florida's able to get healthy over the bye week. Hopefully they will regroup. Obviously, I know they were dealing with a lot of stuff, as was UCF, with all the weather and all that. Hope everyone's okay, in their homes and in their communities. But if I have to pick one, I'm probably going to use UCF solely because I believe they have an identity, and I think they're going to lean into that, and I think they'll be able to, on the road, that kind of stuff travels, right?
It really does. I UCF is vulnerable in that secondary. I thought that their secondary might have a chance to be better than it was last year, considering that their defensive line is very solid. And their ability to stop the run this year has been nothing short of, awesome. Of course, stats. When you play Colorado, those stats get a little bit inflated, but they've been pretty solid. Yeah, and Florida just got gashed in the run game against Miami and got gashed in the run game by Texas A&M.
Hmm.
I mean, I
And
want to
and
take
Mississippi
Florida.
State too. Mississippi State had 240 yards playing in a negative game script too in that second
Yeah,
half.
I want to take Florida because I do think that they could take advantage of the passing game, but I just can't. I just can't. I have to go with UCF. You know that Gus Malzahn, he wants this game. He needs to bounce back. He's pissed. This team is pissed. And also UCF's got a little chip on their shoulder. They see the opportunity, by the way, to win this game against Florida and establish themselves as one of the top teams in the state of Florida, which is a
Yeah,
big deal.
right now, absolutely. It's Miami right now and everybody else. And everybody else has been disappointing thus far, right? And we talked about UCF last week. Yeah, absolutely. To me, obviously, you want to tell me like it means more to Florida and Billy Napier? Absolutely. They are, Florida. They are University of Florida. They should own the state of Florida, and they don't. And obviously, this game has more pressure on them because they are the SEC team. They are the home team, and obviously the Gator logo there. But you want to talk about like actual impact on a college football season? UCF, like, is that team that can actually, can be a contender in the Big 12? We want to see that actually come to fruition. And that starts with today, even though it's not a conference game, but getting back, picking yourself off the ground, being able to stay true to your identity, not get, shy after last week's embarrassment. I don't think Gus Malzahn will. He's a veteran coach. He knows what he is. That's why I feel good about them being able to bounce back.
Let's head over to California, where college game day is at, by the way, where Miami has to travel across the entire country and play against a somewhat of a frisky California team that gotta believe that Jaden Ott is a little bit healthier now. A
So
Miami team that got gashed by Virginia Tech.
it's 9:30 at night too. 9:30 Central Time, 10:30 Eastern Time, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a
Wow.
late game. The body clock for the Miami players. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we don't see a lot of these games, especially considering that this is a conference game. We don't see a lot of games like this. Um, I I'm very intrigued. I'm very intrigued. Miami's
Color
defense
me
has looked good.
intrigued. Absolutely.
Miami's defense looked good the first couple weeks, but again, who did they play? Not a lot there. And then you just had Virginia Tech just waltz in there and just give them problems. And this is after Kyron Jones had been playing horribly. Kyron Jones had been playing absolutely horrible. And he comes out there, throws for 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bajal Tootin running for 141 yards, 7.4 yards a clip. If a healthy Jade Knott's in there, well, what's he going to do to this Miami defense?
Yeah, absolutely. Cal, or let me rephrase that. Virginia Tech had a chance to put that game away last Friday, by the way. So yes, Miami does have to travel. They do get an extra day to rest, recuperate, and be able to prepare for this long travel in this late night game. Virginia Tech had the ball after an interception, right in deep in Miami territory, and they got stopped on fourth down as they were up 10 in that third quarter and then second half there. That's a game, that's a possession. You'd love to see them put it away and make it a three-score game. California has to be able to do that too. We saw them not be able to go for the jugular against Auburn. Now Auburn had zero chance, right, to get these to move the football in that football game. Now, was that Cal's defense or was that Auburn's offense? I think it's a little bit of both. But you're right, though. Jaden Knott has to be a difference maker in this football game. They have to. First of all, running the football does a lot of things for you. It churns clock, it keeps drives moving, and it also keeps Cam Ward and that offense off the field for Miami and gives you opportunities for defense to get rest, to regroup, and also it puts pressure on Miami because if you see your defense getting gashed and just not being able to stop the run, right, you have to be you're almost pressing, right? You almost have to score. The game gets shortened. You get fewer possessions, but also those possessions start meaning something more because of the way your defense is struggling to stop the run. Yeah, man. At home, I think the crowd's going to be pretty excited for this football game down there in Berkeley. I was really disappointed in how they played against Florida State. Really disappointed. I thought they'd go in there and get a win. Now they did have to travel across the country. They
You
do
missed
get a
3 field goals or 2 field
yeah,
goals, and then you would have been kicking a field goal at the end of the game had you made one of those 2 field goals. Yeah.
exactly. So it obviously shoulda, coulda, woulda here. This one scares me. I think it'll be a close game. I think Cal keeps it close. I do wonder though, Miami, we knew a dud was coming. We knew a dud was going to come at some point on their schedule, maybe a couple times. I do wonder if that dud was gotten out of the way with that Virginia Tech football game. And now Miami with game day coming in, a lot of pressure. They are amped up to go for this football game. Cam Ward is difference maker in this football game, obviously for Miami. But we have seen him throw turnovers, and this California team very opportunistic, very very dangerous. I will go Miami to win, but I'll take Cal to cover, whether it be backdoor, whether it just be a hard fought, low scoring football game. Maybe not low scoring, but just kind of grinded out football game for both sides here. So Miami to win, but I'll take plus 12.5 for Cal.
With California's defense, I know I talked about SMU and like how they've kind of relied on turnovers, and that's kind of was a red flag for me for SMU. Like, is this defense actually that good? In California's aspect, like they've impressed me aside from the fact that they forced turnovers. They haven't gotten like they've only recovered 1 fumble in the year, so like the bounce of the ball hasn't really gone their way, but they've forced 10 interceptions, which is number one in the entire country. Cam Ward has been prone to throw interceptions and try to make throws that he thinks he can make, but just can't quite. I think California keeps us close. I know you'd think like, hey, Miami, that last game was a wake up call, but I think it's going to be tough traveling. I think
Hmm.
California is going to try to run the ball with Jay I think they're going to have success doing that. I think Mendoza isn't a bad quarterback. I think California's defense is really good. I'm going to take California to cover, and I'm also going to take California to win this football game. I'm going to do it at home. They get it done. The Golden Bears take down top 10 Miami, Florida.
Cal is also a team that has not been healthy at the wide receiver position. We're hoping that they can get healthy over this bye week here.
I don't know that they will. I think Merriweather's still going to be out. I'm not sure about the status of Brady and Grays. I'm not sure. I think it's more important that Jade Knott is healthy,
Definitely, definitely.
obviously.
But
But like,
it would
I
be
think
nice.
Mendoza, it would be nice, but I think Mendoza can manage because he has been managing without it. I mean, their passing offense hasn't looked amazing, but it's like he's been taking care of the football at least, which something that I didn't necessarily expect coming into the season. Now here's the thing. This could be a situation where Miami, if they pin their ears back and go after Mendoza, I mean California, they've let up 16 sacks, and you saw against FSU, FSU got after him. But you know what? Mendoza's a gamer, and he still stood in there. And I was really impressed with his poise, despite, now it wasn't perfect at times, despite the absolute menacing pass rush that was in his face. And this is an even better pass rush. So that is the side of this equation that I'm very concerned about for Cal. But I'm not betting this, but I just kind of like Cal on the spot, dude. I just kind of like it. Maybe that's an overreaction to the game last week. Maybe Cam Ward does dice up the secondary and doesn't turn the ball over. Maybe they stop Jaden Ott in his tracks. I don't know, but I'm feeling a little golden today. Let's go,
Here's what I'll say
Cal.
too. I don't think it's an overreaction because we've been talking about this game for months now. It seems like back all the way
Yeah,
in
well,
the
you and
summer.
I, the only ones that circled this game on our schedule.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, game day, late to the party, as always. But to me, my last concern here is in terms of for Cal, I thought Auburn did a good job when they wanted to, and they had positive game script and also ahead of the chains. Florida State did too. They ran the ball well, and if Martinez and Fletcher and they get going there, and Miami commits to running the ball, I know it's so hard. Sometimes when you have a dynamic quarterback like Cam Ward, you don't like taking the ball out of his hands, but sometimes you have to. And on the road, just like I said, all the benefits for Cal and running the football. Miami can do the same thing there to reverse to Cal. I think that's my weak spot for, California's front seven, maybe not being super big and physical up front against his big offensive line for Miami. But yeah, I think more times than not, California covers. It's a close game, but it would not surprise me to see Miami just kind of come out and play crazy because they are talented. They are more talented than Cal, obviously. No surprise there, but Cal's so well coached. Will Cox will have him going. Mendoza, like you said, frisky. It's going to be a great game. And the travel, too. I mean, we're seeing this happen. Like Miami played, right, last night or last week, right? They've been playing a while now, and all of a sudden they got to go. And before their bye week, they got to go across the country, man. I think it's something. I don't know if it's everything, but it's something.
We're gonna head on over to the Dirty Dogs. One of my favorite segments that we do here, where we pick underdogs and not just underdogs, right? Because guess what? Bama was an underdog last week, the time we were recording our Dirty Dog segment. We don't do short underdogs, we do long underdogs, a minimum spread of 10 points. CD and I each pick two. We do a draft format. I'm giving CD the picks this week because none of us hit any last week, and I had the first pick last week. So our record on the season's 4-16, which sounds bad, but 20% for 10-point underdogs, and some of these are more than 10-point underdogs. It's pretty good. All right, that's pretty good. Now we're down technically 2.65 units if you were to bet these. We don't bet these. All right, we do this as an exercise because it's fun because there are 10-point upsets nearly every week in college football. It's awesome, and it's our job to find them. So, with that being said, CD, you want to get us going with the first dirty dog of the day?
A dirty dog number one, it will be actually a Wildcat Northwestern plus 520 at home against Indiana. They are 13 and a half point dogs in this game here as it stands on, we're recording this Monday afternoon. Listen, we just talked about Indiana and how impressive they have been so far, and they were last week as well against Maryland. But I do think in terms of, first of all, the slate this week and also at Northwestern. It's going to be in a windy environment. How well can that Indiana passing attack translate to Evanston or really the lake, right? It's right there on the lake for Northwestern. I think this is an opportunity. Northwestern, they know what they want to do offensively, run the ball, and they play good defense. To me, that they're going to be. This just feels like a Northwestern spot here where they go and they shock someone and maybe a look ahead game for Indiana after a very successful week and start to the season. Plus 520, I feel like it's great value for a line that's only at 13 and a half. So give me it. Give me the Cats.
That is actually a very good number for a team that's 13.5-point dogs because, well, we'll get into mine. Mine's also a 13.5-point underdog, but it's only plus 475. Getting a 520 is pretty nice. Yeah, I mean, wasn't my 1-1 pick for sure this week, but I I do think that this is a spot. It is a unique stadium that they're playing in. It's a unique atmosphere. Sometimes, I don't know. Indiana's kind of a wagon right now. I find it hard to believe that they're going to drop this one to Northwestern, but
We
Northwestern,
say it every year to Northwestern, man. Well, here's what I'll do.
Northwestern, yeah.
In this exercise, at least this is how my strategy is like finding paths to victory. And I looked at the slate and I don't see many paths to victory for a lot of these other double digit or more dogs. To me, I feel like there is one for Northwestern, at least to keep it close. And if it's close, man, who knows what can happen in the fourth quarter, especially at home.
Here's my 13.5 point underdog that I'm going with. Second 30 dog of the day, my first pick. Baylor plus 475 going to Iowa State. You're like, Iowa State on the road. Iowa State's pretty good. I don't know if they're that good. I mean, sure, they shut out Houston. Okay, but so did UNLV. Okay, sure, they beat Iowa in like a comeback sort of fashion. That was pretty impressive, right? But
I stopped running the ball in that game.
Iowa stopped running the ball. It was weird. They kind of murdered Arkansas State, but Arkansas State has not looked good this season so far. The way that I thought that they would look. And Baylor, all of a sudden, Sawyer Robinson, who I was not very high on, he's looked all right these last couple weeks. He's not the reason that they lost to Colorado. All right. He gave them a chance in that second half against BYU if they just didn't absolutely fumble the bag. Or not. Sawyer Robinson had like a tipped ball interception early on that led to a score, and BYU just shredded him in the first half and just was like, it looked like Baylor gave up, but then Sawyer Robinson's like, no, we're not giving up. Let's go. Let's rally. Dave Aranda's job's on the line this season. I like Baylor in this spot. I really do. I was pretty close to taking the spread here, but I don't like taking bad teams to cover spreads. All right. And Baylor's a bad team. So but I believe in them for the Dirty Dogs. Give me Baylor plus 475.
I don't hate that at all. I think people watched them kind of get buried by Utah in that first half. A healthy Cam Rising, a very, very inspired performance by Utah, and they kind of checked out and they're like, "Oh, Dave Aranda's done." And they should have beaten right the dominant Air Force, which was terrible. They should have beaten Colorado a couple weeks ago, and then they really hung in there with a good BYU team. Yeah, I think this Baylor team, I think the value right there is good. Obviously, you know, in terms of being a third bad boy favorite, I don't quite see a two touchdown difference between Baylor and Iowa State. I do hate that they're going on the road here, but regardless, you got to find value somewhere. I think that would have been my pick. That would have been my second pick. Speaking of my second pick, I'm going to go a game we previewed earlier, and I'll go to Cal Bears plus 390 right now, hosting Miami College game days there. It'll be a great atmosphere. Yes, obviously Miami could for sure win and blow out this team, but I do think the schedule dynamics, the atmosphere, and the talent that California has, to be honest, and coaching staff gives them a very good formula to be able to pull off this upset here. I hate taking two Power Five teams here, two Power Four teams here as my underdog, my dirty dogs, but I'll ride with California. I've been high on them all off season and in the beginning of the season. I think they bounced back this week. They're coming off a bye, long travel, long flight, late night game from Miami. A lot of things that are going to be contributing to California's success this week. And let's go Bears.
Yeah, that was going to be my second pick for sure. Um, yeah, for all the reasons that I talked about before, why I'm taking California straight up against Miami. I think Baylor and California were my 1 and 2 for this week, so that's a good pick by you. For me, I'm going to go to a plus 600 burger. I'm going to go to the G5. I'm going to go to Louisiana Monroe, a team that I mistakenly took the under on their win total at 2.5. They've already shattered that. They've been playing really good defense right now. And Brian Vincent, I think he's just a really good coach. And I was a little bit shaky about the hire because I thought, oh, I guess there's like kind of a connection there with the AD a little bit from their times at South Alabama. The athletic budget's like one of the smallest in the entire country. Brian Vincent, I don't even think is getting paid $1 million a year. Like man, all right. Good luck. I thought he did a good job in New Mexico, but we'll see what you can do with just zero talent. But hey, here they are. They're playing against James Madison, and James Madison has played back to back garbage garbage defenses. And I think that maybe there's a chance that James Madison's really good. Again, I took them over 8.5 wins. I took them to win the Sun Belt at plus 850 to start the season. I think they're a solid team. I do think that there's a chance that Lou Monroe could sting them. sucker punch him a little bit. And I'm not seeing a lot of other ones that I like more than this. So I'll ride with Lou Monroe plus 600. Not feeling too confident on that one. I like my Baylor one more, but hey, who knows? The Warhawks are, I'm not going to say frisky right now, but they're not playing bad football. They're not playing terrible football. I'll put it that way. They're 3-1 right now. I don't know. I
They
don't
are 3-1, only lost to a obviously very good Texas team. However, their wins again, Troy, what is it? UAB and Jacksonville State or Jackson
Jackson
State.
State. Oh yeah.
No, thank you. They this been ugly. I really don't know. Regardless, so listen, I hope you're wrong. Selfishly, I hope you're wrong. Well, I'll talk about JMU in a little bit here once we do get to the counter and our best bets, but value's value plus 600. Why not? You've been hot this year so far with your dirty dogs. Why not?
Yeah, I think I'm actually up 8 units on the year for my dirty dog picks. So I don't know.
I'm the one dragging us down.
Well, Western Kentucky last week was ridiculous. That should have hit. There were a couple of the bad beats I think that you've had so far this season. But yeah, with that being said, let's head over to the dirt or sorry, let's head over to the counter. All right, and let's get our best bets in for the week. We are at 17-4 in our last 21 picks these last 2 weeks. We got another 12 picks for you, 5 from me, I believe 7 from CD. So I'll let CD go first, but just to quickly recap, those listening on Spotify that can't see the graphic on YouTube, I'm 15-9 on the year, up 4.6. Not sorry, oh, not 15-9. Sorry, I'm 20-10 on the season right now. CD is 9-7. Uh, we're up big units. We're up to close to uh almost 10 units as a show for the season. So that's pretty dang solid if you ask me. But yeah, with that being said, I'll let you go first because you do have more picks than me. And by the way, some of these, and I'll let you know which ones were actually put out on Twitter because some of these lines move and some of these are on key numbers. So put them out on Twitter. If you don't follow us at the Redshirt Soft, then you might not get these at the lines you want them at. And, it's burned a couple people this time so far this season. Just getting it at the right number. It's already happened like 3 times this season that it matters. So yeah, I'll let you kick it off.
All right, so I got first one. I'll go Pitt minus 2.5. Right, Pitt on the road at North Carolina. You talked about not liking to take bad teams to cover. Listen, sometimes you bet against bad teams, and I think North Carolina is a bad football team. That line is under a field goal. I feel pretty good about that for Pitt. The way they can throw the football, take advantage of North Carolina's defense. We saw JMU do the same thing. Yeah, let's go Eli Holsting. Someone I did not think I'd be betting on this year going the season, but I've been impressed. And obviously North Carolina is trending the wrong direction. Mac Brown, I don't quite know if they're on stinker alert in terms of losing the locker room. Listen, I think a lot closer to that than galvanizing and resurging their season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a good play. That was a pick that was put out on Twitter. I believe you can still get it 2.5 at the time of recording, but I'm not sure if it'll still be there by the time this video comes out. So just make sure you follow us on Twitter if you want these plays, which are pretty hot right now. My first play is going to be sticking in the ACC, and this number has already moved, and I put it out on Twitter. Boston College plus 3.5. This might be a giant trap, okay? But I'm betting on the fact that I believe Tommy Castellanos is going to play the football game. I think they can still win with Grayson James. It's just not as likely. On the road against Virginia, I know Boston College's win against Florida State is looking worse and worse, but I still think Boston College's front seven is solid. I still think that Tommy Castellanos is good. I still think that they have weapons. They've been able to run the ball. Their offensive line looks just so much better, light years better than last year. 3.5. I mean, look, if this is a trap, then you can absolutely call me a sucker because I'm all in. Give me Boston College plus 3.5.
Yeah, I was really close to taking that. I'm gonna wait. I do think once that you're seeing that line start to move, I think across three already, and I think as more we get closer and Tommy Castellanos news about him playing, if he gets to go the green light and we find out, ahead of time, I might jump on that too with you, regardless of the line. I just got a little bit nervous there. I'd hate to have an injury cost me a pick, right? But I like that for you. Moving on for me again, I'll be fading Minnesota. I'm 0-2 on the show. Actually, 1-2 on the show, doing it right now. USC travels to Minnesota, travels to Minneapolis, and that line is 8.5. I think that is great value. It's open at 9.5. Again, I don't know who's betting it down. They were smart to do it against Michigan, the backdoor cover there for Minnesota. I think USC is going to be able to put away Minnesota in ways that Michigan could not. USC's offense is very, very good. Their defense has been improving as well. Yes, I know Brosmer is playing well, but they're still not running the ball well. And if Minnesota can't run the football, they're not going to cover this football game. Give me USC minus 8.5. And by the way, they crushed Wisconsin in spite of all those turnovers. Yeah, this is a good football team for USC.
I'm with you. USC minus 8.5. Let's ride. And I believe we are 5-2 on the year when CD and I are uh in agreement on our picks. So loving that for us. CD, I'll let you continue rolling the ball here because that'll be my second pick. It's USC minus 8.5.
All right, heck yeah, I love that too. We talked about ULM and JMU earlier in this episode with your dirty dog. I'm going to be on the other side here, though. Give me JMU minus 15.5. We put it out on Twitter. I think it's up to 17 now in some places. I think it's a really good offense. I think this team is very, very well coached. I've been very impressed with how they're moving the football. I don't know if ULM can keep up with James Madison just because of, the sheer talent that JMU has and also the way that that quarterback Barnett is slinging the pill right now. Slinging the pill. So yeah, give me JMU to start their march in the Sun Belt, right? This is game one of the Sun Belt. They are on a mission, I think they have playoff conversation in their eyes. It starts with ULM in week 6.
I don't hate it. I mean, I think there is total blowout potential here, but for the dirty dog segment, I mean, I'm scraping the board trying to find something, right? Just 10.5 point dogs are, especially as you go on the season, the lines are sharper. It's tougher. It's tougher to find
Mhm.
value. So yeah, I don't hate it. Yeah, again, that was on Twitter. So, and the line was better when we posted it on Twitter. So make sure you guys are following us on Twitter if you want picks at the numbers that are the best numbers. Over here, I'm going to go with the total here. And I rarely take overs. Rarely. But here it is. Wake Forest, NC State over 55.5 points. Seems like a lot, but Wake Forest's defense is garbage. NC State's defense is garbage. And honestly, CJ Bailey hasn't been playing bad at all. And Wake Forest,
Bachmeier's been good.
Bachmeyer's
Bachmeier's been good.
Bachmeyer's been good. Clayborn's been awesome. Donovan Green is electric. Casey Concepcion. I think the playmakers in this game alone are going to account for a lot of points. Um, I don't think these teams necessarily are the fastest paced teams of all time, which is why I think this number isn't higher. But when I look at this number, I'm like, how is this number not, like 58, 59? I thought it'd be higher. So I'm a 56 is a key number. So I'm on it now. I anticipate that moving up, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Give me Wake Forest, NC State over 55.5.
Love that. Love that. Like you said, we don't take overs often here. They do scare you sometimes, but I'm with you. I think that's a great pick. I'll stay in the Sun Belt for mine, or at least following James Madison, another pretty solid team. How about the one coming off a loss, though? Texas State minus 14 to get right against Troy. First of all, notice the theme here. North Carolina, Minnesota, ULM, Troy. Bad football teams I'm betting against here. I think even these lines are pretty high. At 2 touchdowns, I'll take it here. I will take it here. I think that result, got to give a ton of credit for Sam Houston State. Ton of credit to them for battling back. I do think Texas State, if they were to play again, they'd be able to put them away. And I think they'll do that here with Troy. They will not mess around. Troy is not good. They cannot score the football very much. And yeah, give me Texas State here. The Bobcats, GJ Kenny, McLeod, Motti, all those studs. Let's go.
Yeah, I thought about it. Thought about it. I guess it's at 14 now. I
Thursday night scares me though, but the quick
Yeah,
turnaround, like,
better football teams play better in short turnarounds.
and the quarterback too, McLeod.
Better coached football teams,
But
by the
coach
way.
football teams. You got McLeod's a veteran guy. He's seen a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, Ishmael Mahdi might go for like 8 billion yards in this game, by the way. Troy's
Mhm.
defense is looking utterly horrendous these days. So yeah, I actually like that pick for me. I might hop on it. on my own accord. I don't know if I'll end up adding it to my board, but oh well. For me, my next pick gonna go over to the Mountain West, a team that is getting a lot of media attention right now. Boise State minus 26 against Utah State. Utah State is bad
Hmm.
at football, and I think no. Here's the thing: Utah State's offense is not that great, but Boise State's defense, it's kind of slept on as being very. People think it I don't think people realize how bad actually it is. Like it's not a very good defense at all, especially through the air. But that's the thing. Does Utah State can they take advantage of throwing the ball with Spencer Petras and Bryce? I don't know. I don't think they can. So if there was a weakness to Boise State's defense, it's definitely that secondary. So I just don't think Utah State's going to take advantage of it, and they're giving up. I mean, almost 200 yards on the ground themselves, over 5 yards a carry. What is Ashton Janty going to do to this defense? It might be very, very ugly. So, give me Boise State minus 26.
Yeah, when Evan Simon looks pretty good against you guys, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. It could be a rough one. I think Mad Max also gets his as well, not just Janty. I like that for you. The line a little bit too rich. I really thought about it, but Boise State scares me after a huge win like that. Letdown effects, blah blah blah. I don't really know. I don't not that I predict it's gonna happen, but it just kind of scared me away just a little bit. I will go to the ACC here. Clemson at Florida State. The line I think is at 14 and a half right now. Fine. I'll take it. I don't really care. Florida State's terrible. I don't know if DJU is gonna start. I don't really
Oh,
care. I
there's a
don't.
there's a 14 out there.
Oh, I'll take the 14. Thank you. Friendly reminder to always shop lines, like we say here. No, no, don't be leaving value on the board for no reason. But yeah, Clemson here, I think they're a very good football team. I think they're a very good football team. I think Florida State's a bad football team. Even though there's talent there, I think Clemson overwhelms them. SMU put up big time numbers against them. So will Clemson. And Brock Glenn is not the answer for Florida State. Not yet. Not that I think so. Yeah, give me Clemson.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I just feel really weird about that game being in Tallahassee. I don't think Brock Glenn is good if he ends up starting, but Clemson has been the beneficiary of playing some really bad, like really bad bottom 10 defenses the last couple weeks. So I'm not sold on their offense yet. And I think Florida State's defense is starting to figure it out a little bit. I know SMU kind of dropped a couple burgers on them, but turnovers, where they have two defensive touchdowns in that game or something like that. So I, I'm a little bit higher on FSU's defense. If they can just like figure out to not turn the ball over, I don't know, maybe they can keep it within two touchdowns. It's interesting, but I thought about it. Just wasn't enough for me. Another total that I'm on, my last play of the day, Oregon State, Colorado State, under 48 and a half points. Here's the deal here. Okay. Colorado State's run defense, if there was anything good about its defense, it can actually stop the run pretty decently. Oregon State has not been able to throw the ball at all. Well, they haven't really needed to in a lot of these games, but they cannot throw the ball to take advantage of this Colorado State secondary. This Colorado State front seven is honestly performing a little bit over my expectations. I still don't know if they have the talent necessarily to match up with Oregon State up front, but they held Texas to like 4.5 yards per carry. They shut down whoever they played last week. And I just there's a chance that Oregon State tries to run the ball and then they can't. And I think Oregon State's defense is a lot better than Colorado State's offense. And I also think that Torrey Horton's going to be out again. So I don't, Colorado State just does not have the weapons. The issue that could happen is like if Oregon State's defense forces enough turnovers, um, and Oregon State's run defense is really garbage too. But I just think if Colorado State wants to win this football game, they have to run the ball effectively. If Oregon State wants to win this ball game, they're gonna have to run the ball a little bit better than maybe they normally do. I don't know. They're just this game screams run the football to me. I believe it's in Colorado State, so the elevation there Oh no, it's in Oregon
Or
State.
it's in Corvallis.
Either way, give me give me Oregon State, Colorado State under 48 and a half.
I don't hate it at all. I don't hate it. I mean, you got one quarterback for Oregon State that's not playing good football, and Braden Fowler Nicolosi has not been playing elite football, especially without Torrey Horton. Yeah, I don't hate that at all for all the reasons you mentioned. I got two more here. I'll go back to the Sun Belt, the well that is South Alabama, minus 2.5. They found something there the past couple weeks, I think, with that running game, with Gio Lopez being healthy. And I also think Arkansas State's not very good. Their quarterback's position, Rayner has not been good this year. He really hasn't. McLean's come in and done some good things, but I think there's a lot to be desired there offensively for Arkansas State. I know their schedule has been tough, but Central Arkansas and Tulsa should have been two losses there, and it ended up with a win at under a field goal here, even on the road for South Alabama. I love them in that spot. And then I'll finish off with Tulane. I think it's at minus 14.5 right now against UAB. Again, a theme of taking spreads, even if they're double digit against bad football teams. Tulane, very good football team. I think going to continue their push for the American Conference title against UAB. Yeah. Well, similar to what they did the past couple weeks here. I think they're going to score some points, and I don't think UAB can get it done enough through the air to be able to be able to come back and cover 14.5 points.
A lot of favorites on your side of the board, eh?
It's the week of the favorite. Well, these are just the favorites I'm picking. I'm just going to pick the right favorites. There could be a lot of upsets here for sure, but not in my games.
No, I get it. Betting
Too many
against
bad
bad
football
football,
teams right now.
yeah, betting against bad football teams is never a bad idea.
No.
It's never a bad idea. Hey, but that's it. Guys, thank you for tuning in to our week 6 preview with our best bets, our dirty dogs, and the 8 games that we previewed previously. Look, we're almost at 500 subscribers. If you stuck around this far and you like the content, first of all, like the video. Second of all, I think maybe if we did a good enough job, it would warrant you subscribing. Maybe. Turn on the notifications. Look, we're here twice a week in the recaps and the previews, and we're excited to be here. We love doing it. We're in the heart of the college football season, and yet it's just beginning. We're still learning about teams. I say this every week, but it's like we're still learning about a lot of these teams. And I don't know if this was as cornerstone of a week as it was last week, but every time you say that, it's like, oh wait, shoot, this game just yielded this result, and now all
Hmm.
of a sudden the college football playoff picture or this conference race has completely been turned on upside its head. So I'm excited once again for another great slate. CD, anything for us on the way out?
No, echo everything you said. Hope you guys enjoyed the content, enjoying the football season, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
You bet.